Hello and welcome to the Dire Gentleman channel. I'm Gus Zagarella.
And I'm Henry Galley, and this is Two Professional Writers, the show where Gus and I, a pair of writers who get paid for it, talk about some of the best, worst, and most middling writing advice from all over the internet, from the strangest sources out there.
What can we say? Writing is a vast field and there's a lot of animals pooping in it. So who are we covering this time, Henry?
Well, today we've got a big old elephant taking big old elephant shits. It's Joss Whedon. You saw the title, you saw the thumbnail, and you're either someone who's a fan of the Two Professional Writers series, a person like us who has a kind of morbid masochistic love of a bit of good Whedon cringe, or you are the very rare Joss Whedon fan here to stick up for him. And if that's you, hi, you're probably gonna have a rough hour.
Yeah, we're very sorry because you're about to enter the Age of Ultron. We are going to be invading the Whedonverse, or as he calls it, the verse.
Well, let's see if we're adverse to these fucking tips he's got.
What did you say about us? We're the most balanced show on the internet?
Yeah, exactly. We are the fairest men in America, even though one of us is in America. Though, to be fair, I am taking a holiday to America soon.
If you're in America too, then we'll be the fairest men in America in America.
God, won't that be a magical experience? Last thing I'm going to say, just for a bit of context, it's been a little while since you've seen us, and it's because I've been super busy prepping for travel stuff, and Gus has been pretty sick with bronchitis, so if there are any, moments of coughing in the video, do forgive him and go sign up to his Patreon to make him feel better. He's got medicine to buy.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Also, I can edit out the coughs.
That's true, unless you cough while I say something really profound that we just couldn't lose. Alright, speaking of really profound, are you ready for these tips?
Yeah, gimme it. Gimme the tip.
Just the tip, please.
Yeah.
That's a little on the nose, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we haven't done that one before. I was kind of surprised at us.
There was that great meme from a while back that was just like, this movie, but if it was written by Joss Whedon. And it started off with Saw, and it's Carrie Elwes' character holding the saw, and the quote underneath is, well, this is a little on the nose, isn't it?
We're getting into the Whedon-y mood already, I
We're getting
think.
into the weeds.
Into the weeds, yes.
First, we have a few little quotes from him as like a little icebreaker. This first one is, people love a happy ending, so every episode I will explain once again that I don't like people, and then Mal will shoot someone we like, and their puppy. You can feel the sneer behind it, can't you?
Yeah, and I don't know that that's really true that he does sad endings every single time. Like, I've seen Firefly, and like...
Well, that's the thing. Like, Gus and I discussed this a little bit off mic, but our general expectations for this video is, with Joss Whedon, we're expecting it to be a mixed bag, because Joss Whedon has a lot of flaws, but I don't think he's stupid. So, I think there are definitely going to be some good tips in here. And, Gus and I will give the devil his due when, that actually applies. But we're also going to, contextualize it all and see to what extent he practices what he preaches. Because, yeah, I think it isn't always beneficial to just have this kind of, smugly antagonistic relationship with your audience.
Well, I would argue no, and I would argue that he doesn't do it either. This is the guy who directed The Avengers, which is the biggest win of all time. They win so hard in that movie that they literally stop, defeat the main villain of the film, and then go back to winning.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Honestly, it is funny because when you think, a guy who, really goes hard with his narratives and, never panders to the fans, you don't think Joss Whedon, do you?
I think if you asked any, fan of Firefly or anyone who knows about it, Mal, Nathan Fillion's character, they wouldn't, note his cruelty and willingness to shoot puppies as his outstanding traits.
I love that scene where Nathan Fillion just fucking stomped a puppy's head in. That was so badass. Oh, Joss, you're so cool.
Oh, well, the thing is, the context behind that scene is that there were Reavers coming towards the puppy, and so he killed the puppy so that the Reavers wouldn't get it.
Otherwise they would have fucked it to death, of course.
Yeah, exactly, because that's what they do. They fuck everything to death. We're past the minute mark. We can say fuck to death.
Exactly. The next quote we have from Whedon, which It's really funny because I have actually heard this one quoted so many times, but I actually think it's emblematic of one of his most annoying writing quirks. The quote is, "Make it dark, make it grim, make it tough, but then, for the love of God, tell a joke." To which I would append the important qualifier, or don't.
Yeah, sometimes or don't is an option that you can and sometimes should take.
Because imagine if there's a movie we've both discussed on the channel multiple times, one we both enjoy, but is a very dark, punishing film. Imagine if right at the end of Hereditary, spoilers for the end of Hereditary, by the way, 3, 2, 1, okay, spoiler time. When, like, after the whole family has died, like, Peter, now fully possessed by Payman, is up in the treehouse being coronated, as the crown is, like, placed there, everyone steps back, there's a moment of silence, and then Payman/Peter rips an epic fart. Wouldn't that so destroy the ending of that movie?
Yeah, exactly. Like a joke at the end of an extremely dark thing doesn't always make it better. At best, it can feel like a kind of like apology or like a reach out to the audience, like a like, hey, I'm with you, we're doing all right. And at worst, it can feel like it's undermining everything that came before it because it's not confident in the audience wanting to stick around.
Exactly, and I think this is a huge issue that not only manifested in Whedon's Avengers, but has, even after his departure, lingered, like appropriately a bad fart ripped in a treehouse, over the entire MCU and its rating. I think even in their best outings, they have the really annoying tendency to do something sincere and kill that same sincerity with a poorly timed joke. Which, let's be honest, that's about as trite a criticism of the MCU as you can get because it's so fucking obvious.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. But, it's worth noting within the context of this video that, like, the legacy of Joss Whedon's writing is extremely important to talk about, not because of, like, whether or not he does anything like this in the future, but because it influenced so many things from the time of Buffy the Vampire Slayer onward.
You're incredibly right, and there's that great recent article that we'll link in the description that Vice did about how that Spectre manifests in a very cringeworthy fashion in the new live-action Cowboy Bebop, which is a fantastic read.
Oh no, that article is a great read. Like, if you want to unproductively hate Netflix Cowboy Bebop, that is definitely an option. But if you want to productively look at its flaws, you might want to check out this because it's not an isolated incident. This kind of writing can occur anywhere, anywhen. It's much like a disease, a Whedon disease.
Yeah, and you need to like root it out in your own writing. Also, like, I hate the Netflix Cowboy Bebop as much as the next guy, but A, don't bully the actors, and B, especially don't bully the actual child who plays Ed for like 1 minute of a post-credit stinger. That is all on the writers and directors. Do not bully a fucking child, you spineless pricks.
Can we get a do not bully children in the comments, please?
Yeah.
Leave a comment that says do not bully children.
Yeah, like, yeah, leave a comment that says do not bully children. Like, what are we, fucking rice gum? Like, if you are an adult, you have no business shitting on actual children. Like, come on, we're better than this. Very last thing before we move on to the next one. One weirdly iconic example of this being done, this tip, not well, but in a way that is immensely memorable to the point that it's become like a huge running joke on this channel, is the ending of a cult with the iconically bizarre "It's Hell" thing that is even on fucking Direwolf's crop top, as a fan on Twitter pointed out the other day. That may be the ultimate example of it being done so badly that it almost comes full circle and is brilliant.
Henry Galley, you've never recovered from like that ending of a cult, and to be honest, neither have any of us.
I watched it on my birthday last year. That was my experience with that.
We're all still down there spinning in that abyss of jellyfish and leeches.
It's hell.
Going, it's hell. It's hell. It's hell.
Speaking of hell, here's another Whedon tip. He says,
Ah.
all Noteworthy work is open to interpretations the author did not intend. Art isn't your pet, it's your kid. It grows up and talks back to you. What do you think?
I don't know. That's an odd. I'm always kind of averse to people personifying their art as a thing separate from them, but that might just be my bias talking.
The thing is, I think to introduce, a little bit of devil's advocate to this, I think he's clearly referring to like death of the author here. But to your point, Gus, I think it could also be said, and this is something that you and I, as collaborative writers, have experienced. Sometimes what you plan ends up, not being the end result. A great example being, we recently released episode 6 of season 2 of Less is Morgue, Whose Wine Is It Anyway, which is an episode where Riley and Evelyn do improv comedy. And originally, we were going to have a villain turn up in that episode and just kind of be a jerk. But as we were writing it, we just realized that, yeah, the way this episode has like grown naturally, there's no point having that in there. And I guess, in a sense, if you were to give quite a generous interpretation to what Joss is saying here, that could apply. But I guess it's more kind of, death of the author. Your interpretation is as good as anyone else's, ultimately.
Yeah, no, I think that I think that it's a handy kind of device for figuring through how like sometimes the best laid plans will change, your art will like go in directions you weren't expecting. I just personally think it's been my experience that like your writer brain further down the path will look at things you did previously and you'll be like, "Oh, I was foolish then." Like it's not like some story is going to reemerge with some inertia of its own and have new things to say to you. Well, maybe that's true too. But it's because you came to those insights. It's not something external.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I think as well, to your point about the pitfalls of personifying stories, I do think there is an issue in that because it might stop you from engaging the way a writer should with a tale, which is frankly with a degree of ruthlessness that you shouldn't treat the people in your life with. Again, a message that really should have been internalized by Joss Whedon, given a lot of the allegations about how he behaves towards people on his sets. But yeah, I think you're right. A big flaw of personifying stories is that you're not going to be as objective as you need to be when it comes to reckoning with the flaws of your own work, while you can still change those things, which is to say, in the edit.
Yeah, you really can't think of your characters as your friends and you can't think of your stories as like events that are like immutable. It is all a bunch of toy soldiers that you're laying out on a table and at any moment your knee could shake that table and knock it all over. Like you need it is a world that has no ability to move itself without you.
Exactly. Like, don't give in to bad faith. As Gus was saying, like, nothing that happens in your narrative is immutable. You can change anything. See the advice we had in our Tumblr video about the fact that, hey, if you write yourself into a corner, just go 10 steps back and write yourself
Back
out
out
of
of
the
the corner,
corner.
yeah.
It's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so speaking of advice, onwards and I wouldn't say upwards. Those quotes, regardless of what you think of them, they were undeniably pithy. Here is when Mr. Whedon gets a little bit more long-winded. So I'm going to read these in chunks, and we'll discuss the chunks so it doesn't get too overwhelming.
All right. Let's do some Joss chunks.
Yeah, Joss makes me blow chunks. This is under the subheading "Getting It Done," and it's 2 paragraphs. Here's paragraph 1. And this to contextualize the first statement, he was like asked to give his thoughts on writing and just actually finishing writing. To which Joss responded, "Micro or macro?" And the interviewer said, "Micro." So Joss says, "Micro is about the moment, and it's about having an idea or having writer's block and just trying to get through those moments. For me, it boils down to specificity, knowing exactly what I'm trying to accomplish. Because if I have 3 projects, it's maybe I'll work on Shield, or maybe I'll work on this or this. It's easy to just get nothing done. But if you've got to rock a little David Allen, who, for context, wrote a book called Getting It Done, out to be able to get things done and break your list down into next actions. And this is true of producing and directing, but even of writing. It's like, okay, today I'm going to figure out this action sequence. Today I'm going to watch a shit ton of other action sequences, whatever it is. But that would be the other side of it after the specificity of knowing. Don't just say, oh, I need to work on that. Say, I need to work on this element of that. Absolutely eat dessert first. The thing that you want to do most, do that. So that's paragraph 1. What is your opinion on that, Gus? I know there was a lot in there.
I think I very much agree with this. It's much more practical, especially when you're talking about like a bigger project, to attack it in territories, to go after these things that are doable, to set small goals, to know like, this is what I've got to nail down today. Because when you do that in bits and pieces, you get those smaller things done definitively. And the bigger thing is slowly, you know, taken care of.
Yeah. And again, as we said at the start, because we are the fairest men in America and sometimes out of America, yeah, I am also inclined to agree. I think that is good practical advice. And because at the end of the day, objectively, writing is better than not writing, regardless of the quality of the writing. Because if you write conscientiously, you will learn something, you will get further. And if your way in is thinking, okay, I don't have the start of this nailed down, but like this scene or this aspect further in, I have a really clear picture of that. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Do that. Because writing that scene down might motivate you to write towards it from the start.
Exactly. The biggest practical like benefit of this advice is that it avoids a blank page. You'll be doing something, and that's better than nothing.
Completely agreed. And I think that segues us nicely into the next paragraph where he says, some people will disagree, but for me, if I've written a meaty, delightful, wonderful bunch of scenes, and now I have to do the hard, connective dog's bodywork of writing, when I finish the dog's bodywork, I'll have a screenplay that I already love. I used to write chronologically when I started, from beginning to end. Eventually, I went, that's absurd. My heart is in this one scene, therefore I must follow it. Obviously, if you know you have a bunch of stuff to do, I have to lay out all this dull stuff, and I feel very uncreative, but the clock is ticking. Then you do that and choose to do that. But I always believe in just have as much fun as you can when you're in the part that you hate. So when you're in the part that you hate, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Sorry, he is very verbose and long-winded. That you're close to
Mm-hmm.
finished. I feel like that paragraph was basically just what we said, but annoying.
Well, here's the thing too. And sorry, like I know that the actual act of writing can be tough sometimes. Like sometimes it's just not there. It's a little bit of a struggle. But like, don't ever write dull scenes. Like whatever you're doing, like have the scene be interesting. Like yeah, the dog's body work. I that's a term for like it when it's a struggle, right?
Yeah, it's an old expression, but like the dog's bodywork is, just like the kind of belt and braces, dull, like dull but necessary. I'd probably say is a best description.
Well, here's the thing. I would view the working like part dull but necessary, but no scenes should ever be dull but necessary. Scenes themselves should be necessary and interesting.
Yeah, and to give a practical tip on top of that, Gus and I are huge devotees of this rule from Blake Snyder's book Save the Cat, which every writer should read. Yeah, don't follow it to the letter, but everyone fucking read it. The technique of the Pope in the pool, which is if you have a scene that is necessary in regards to say, okay, a certain piece of exposition needs to be delivered, certain characters have to meet, a certain thing needs to happen. Figure out a way to make it interesting. Maybe make a character who could be boring, kind of eccentric and strange, which is another technique known as the limp and the eye patch. Maybe have something bizarre happening in the background. Maybe set it in a setting that would feel very novel and unconventional for a scene like this. Like as Gus said, there will be some scenes that are hard to write because sometimes scenes with a lot of moving parts are just challenging. That's natural. Writing won't always be easy, but yeah, as Gus said, you should never leave a scene and be like, well, it's a boring scene, but it does the job, because no, it's only done half the job. Like, entertaining is always going to be part of the job.
Yeah, exactly. Like, never have anything that is your collection of scenes you really like, and then all the, like, well, I know that this is supposed to go here because this is what happens in other things. Like, no. First of all, watch things that entertain you that don't have boring bits. That, like, and then, you know, write things that are also entertaining. Like, not everything's perfect. Sometimes, like, there are dull things, but you should never feel boredom at your own work while you're writing
Yeah,
it.
you should never resign yourself to dullness. You should always have a good try to make something novel and strange and interesting. And by the way, your thing about watching stuff that entertains you, that's an interesting segue to the next section. 2 paragraphs here. It's under the subheading "Fill the tanks." Are you ready?
All right, let's do it. Fill the
Yeah,
tanks.
fill the tanks. The last piece of advice on that level is fill the tanks. Fill the tanks. Fill the tanks. What are you filling the tanks with, Joss? Sorry, that's very bad faith, but also he's a dick. Fuck him.
Come on.
Anyway, constantly watch things and things you don't normally watch. Step outside your viewing zone, your reading zone. It's all fodder, but if you only take from one thing, then it will show. Which, okay, already I thoroughly agree with that. That's advice we've given to a lot of people.
Uh-huh. We sure have.
Then it goes on to, I read The Killer Angels. It's a very detailed, extraordinarily compelling account of the Battle of Gettysburg from the point of view of various people in it, and it's historical. It's historically completely accurate, and the moment I put it down, I created Firefly, because I was like, I need to tell this story. I need to feel this immediately. I so connect with that era, the Western, and how tactile everything is, and how every decision is life or death, and how hard it is, and how rich it is, and how all the characters are just so fascinating. But I should, but so I should be on, what? But so I should be on the Millennium Falcon. Stop speaking so stupid, Joss. Now if I only watch sci-fi, but that could apply to how I feel about so much of his dialogue. No, now if I only watched sci-fi, I would have just had the Millennium Falcon part, which has already been done. But finding that historical texture, I literally put the book down and started writing Firefly, and that was my vacation from Buffy, which was 2 weeks. I get 2 weeks every year, and and in that vacation, I read in 14 days 10 books, and my wife and I saw like 9 plays, and that's all we did. We just filled the tanks. So what are your thoughts, Gus?
Yeah, I think, like, fill the tanks is a very strange turn of phrase for this, because it's not really fill the tanks, it's have a variety of interests.
Yeah, like, I think I have this poster, which, you know those, like, scratch-off experience posters? Where they have, like, loads of squares on it, and you can, like, scratch a thing off when you experience it? And this is a, like, 100
Yeah.
movies to see before you die poster?
Mm-hmm.
But there's this really interesting, like, sentence on the bottom that says something to the effect of, every single one of these films is an individual and unique work of art made with love by its creators. Take the time to properly experience and appreciate each one. Don't rush through them. And I think that's a really great piece of advice, because while I do believe it is incredibly important to read, watch, listen widely, and to be, you know, as a writer and a creator, conscientious about what is being done and the processes, I think it is possible to take a too workmanlike attitude to it and numb yourself to the actual, like, wonder and majesty of art, which is equally important to connect with, because it reminds you, wow, this can make me feel like this. I want to pay this forward and make other people feel like this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just it's also worth mentioning because, you know, we have always advocated for the, like, you know, interdisciplinary, like, you know, watch widely, you know, true Zen is found in eclecticism, quote Gargak, all that sort of stuff.
A big, weird, bouncy ball metaphor from either Tumblr or Reddit. Can't remember which one.
Yeah, fill that room with balls. Put balls in the tank, Joss. No, but, what I was gonna say is that, like, outside of all of, like, the media stuff as a storyteller, it's also, like, there's a real world full of experiences that you can also pull from. You can get like ideas from out there too. And it's always worth saying that like you could fill the tank with other media, but you could also fill the tank with your own unique
Yeah,
experiences.
fill the tank with life.
Fill it with life.
Explore,
Live
discover,
life.
interact, meet people, talk to people. Because I think it's incredibly true. Gus was pointing out, and it's just such a valuable thing to remember to not just develop as a writer, but as a human being. While it's awesome to appreciate art, especially if you want to make art, like as Stephen King says, art is a support system for life, not the other way around. Like it's so important to remember to actually live and be there in the lives of people and to be there in your own life, because if you don't, it will fly by way quicker than you imagine.
Exactly. And like I think the art will suffer as a result. The stories won't be as like true to the human experience, because what experience will you really have with the human experience?
Exactly. And that's a little bit more nuanced than fill the tanks. God. I'll admit, I think
Yeah. Fill the tanks at all
we
costs.
were a little bit unfair to Joss Whedon in, just because Wendig did it, us being like, comparing everything he did to like weird sexual stuff and reading weird sexual meanings into his like metaphors and analogies. And
You're right. And here's the thing. We mostly were vibing on like fill the tanks and that sort of advice. I think those last two paragraphs were decently practical, and even though Whedon speaks like a man stalling so someone won't like shoot him.
yeah, it's not fair to always draw like weird sexual shit into what he's saying.
Exactly.
The next subheading is masturbating.
No, you're lying. You're lying. You can't be
Can't read my,
serious.
you can't read my poker face. Let's talk about
You
masturbating.
can't be
No, I
serious.
am.
Is that real?
Here's the quote. Here's the quote. When I got out of college, I knew I wanted to make movies, to tell stories, but I had no particular plan. I knew I wasn't good with a camera, so I fell back on writing. I wrote 10 scripts, 100 pages each, and none of them were ever made. It felt like masturbation. If no one buys your scripts, if it never comes to fruition or gets shared with an audience, you're just telling yourself stories, like when you masturbate.
Okay, Ernest Klein. I don't know why you got some Ernest Klein stuff in here. Can we get back to Joss
Well, I mean,
Whedon?
as we've discussed, they like Joss Whedon, Chuck Wendig, and Ernest Cline are the same guy in three different disguises, and whenever one falls out of vogue, the other comes into prominence.
That's true. They're to quote recent MCU parlance, they're variants of each other.
Exactly. The thing is, don't think there's any real value in that quote, like, or like what it's trying to preach, because it is immensely important to produce pieces of work. Yeah, you know in your heart probably aren't going to get made, but you can use as a testing ground to learn your craft.
Yeah, I was also just gonna say, like, hold on, time out. Like, masturbation is a completely healthy
Yeah, no,
thing to do. Like,
exactly.
obviously, like, there's limits, but like, it's a natural function that your body can perform, and sometimes it helps you, like, mentally just to get a nut out. What's the
To
problem
jump
here?
into Joss Whedon's like metaphor playground, but like, put a more meaningful spin on it. Like when it comes to writing and creating, just like in life, you can't fuck all the time, especially if no one else is picking up what you're putting down. So sometimes you need to masturbate, which is to say, make stuff just for you, which is completely valid.
Exactly. Just get that nut.
Exactly. Like the fact is, yeah, this show is called Two Professional Writers. Gus and I, both in our passion projects and in our day jobs, we write creatively for a living. But the fact is, both of us write stuff that's just for us. Like the things that we never really intend to produce or release, just things that sometimes are for like stress relief or for fun or to practice or to get an idea of our heads. So
Or to get a
well,
nut
that's the
out.
thing. Like, yeah, I guess in a sense it kind of is like masturbating, but not in the weirdly like shaming way that it feels like Joss was intending. Because, like, yeah, it's just this weird, like, kind of like toxic feelings around wanking, which is something that I feel like normal people have an incredibly neutral view on, but all the fucking, like, November weirdos think that, you know, not draining their balls once in a while will fucking allow them to go Super Saiyan.
It feels like ever since Jordan Peterson, met you in the dream realm and passed on his strange wisdom to you, we've had to also give life advice to just everybody on this show.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like, Jordan Peterson was at the time when this started being a show about advice with a heavy focus on writing rather than just writing advice. Because, again, the thing is, as we said, part of being a good writer is living. So naturally, life advice is going to come up in writing advice.
Yeah, and the thing is, as long as you're being productive and as long as you're being healthy and as long as you're,
Being kind to people in your life.
being kind to people, there's nothing wrong with practicing anything for an audience that isn't there.
Oh, also, as well, just because we get questions about this all the time, fanfiction is a completely valid form of writing and is a great way to hone your skills.
We love fanfiction writers out there. Some of us still write
Yeah,
fanfiction.
if you're a fanfiction writer, sound off in the comments because you're awesome and we love you. Hell, if you're a fanfiction reader, sound off in the comments too, and tell fanfiction writers how much their work means to you. So just, get some love down there, make it happy. Because, yeah, fanfiction is awesome, and in many ways, it is a key part of the creative ecosystem because,
the backbone of like the creative economy.
yeah, I mean, exactly, because all artists start off imitating the artists they love. And, yeah, the ones that go on to be great artists will take off the training wheels and develop their own voice, but, like, no artist is an island. And a great way to start off is trying to do what the people you love do as a way of figuring out why they do what they do and how it works.
Exactly. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and fanfiction is a sincere form of imitation.
Yeah, let us know you're down there, fanfiction people. We love you. Writers, readers, just, you're fucking awesome. Hell yeah. Now we are on to the second half of the video, basically kind of perfectly halfway through, which is also the final section. It is Joss Whedon's 10 writing rules. Getting back to basics, a numbered list, baby.
Oh, yeah! You gotta have the numbered lists. Oh, man.
Numbered lists are this show's backbone.
It's true. It's true.
All right, are you ready?
I have been ready for Joss Whedon's 10 writing rules ever since I knew they
I
existed.
could almost say they are inevitable.
That wasn't him, that was the Russos.
Oh no, but he is White Thanos.
He'll do it himself.
Speaking of Thanos, I don't want to give too many details away, but Gus is writing a really cool video essay about Thanos at the moment, and
I might be.
if you're curious about what that is, I would recommend subscribing to the Jar Gentleman channel, and yeah, we would very much love that if you did. Oh, and we mentioned it before, kind of joking, but this is a good thing to do sort of halfway through videos. If you love listening to us talk and you love the strangeness of the Dark Gentleman channel and you want to support us while also getting some awesome bonus content, we really recommend hopping onto the Dark Gentleman Patreon, which is only one tier, $1 a month, and for that, you get 2 awesome podcasts a month, and there's already a bunch on there for you to enjoy. Right, Gus?
Oh, yeah, and sometimes we even throw in bonus ones when we're feeling a little bit extra spicy. Mostly movie reviews, but occasionally we're going to be throwing some other weird stuff on there first. And it's only $1 a month. That's an excellent deal, practically a steal. And, you can pay that dollar, you can come in there, and you can just know that you are a part of the exclusive club of people who get to listen to us talk just that little bit more.
Hell yeah, baby, hell yeah. If you're one of those people who draws while you listen to us, believe me, it's all audio. You go in there, $1 a month, hours of extra drawing content. You can't lose, baby.
Yeah, baby,
yeah. Baby, yeah. We also talk about Austin Powers on there, so you can find out why we keep doing these fucking impressions. All right. Links will be in the description. Okay, so rule number 1, finish it. Which, after the masturbation rule, just feels dirty.
Well, if you say so, Joss. Zip.
Yeah, that sounded wrong.
Well.
So that happened.
How is that a party?
That's a little on the nose, as in you jizzed all over my nose. Anyway, so the subheading for finish it is actually finishing it is what I'm going to put as step one. You may laugh at this, but it's true. I have so many friends who have written 2/3 of a screenplay and then rewritten it for about 3 years. Finishing a screenplay is, first of all, truly difficult, and secondly, really liberating. Even if it's not perfect, even if you know you're going to have to go back to it, type to the end. You have to have a little closure.
Absolutely. Yep. Finish the screenplay.
Wholeheartedly
Finish
agree.
it. Finish it. Whatever you've got, whatever you're working on, finish it. You can always do a second draft, or you can write something else. You will never be free of your big passion project until you finish it. And maybe what you really need is a slightly smaller big passion project.
Yeah, exactly. Don't just have a closet full of WIPs. Like, I'm gonna say this again because according to the comments, we saved some fucking lives on this in the last video. If you are writing something or drawing something or animating something or whatever while you're listening to it, save right now.
Yes, save. Don't drop your spaghetti.
Yeah, don't drop your fucking spaghetti. Save your goddamn project. This is your warning. This is your reminder. Save, 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 save.
You won't be able to finish it unless you save
exactly.
it.
You can write the best masterpiece in the world, but if your fucking computer crashes before you saved, it is gonzo, baby.
I will say one thing. This is an anecdote I think I've told before on this show, but this is a weird writing advice for someone who's like midway through a screenplay.
Go on.
If you're like halfway through, but you're not feeling it, you don't know what to do, start over. Don't even look at what you've already written. Go into another document, start completely over, same idea, just same concept, just go at it from a different angle. I swear, you'll probably be surpassing where you were before, and you'll finish it a lot sooner.
110%. That is something that you, me, and Meg have all done with recent projects. Like, Gus and I were on a call the other day, and I've written a pilot for a show called Sick Puppies, which is a really weird workplace comedy about a snuff film ring. And I showed him the first few pages of a first draft I wrote, which was just absolutely atrocious. And I saved myself by just abandoning it, and as Gus said, just writing again from a different angle. Finished it in, I think, 2 days. Like a 43-page script. Sometimes you do just need to start again.
Exactly, because once you've begun writing something, your brain is going to already start to know what the spirit of this really is. And if you start fresh, your intuition will take over. If it's really something you're passionate about, if it's really something you know, then sometimes the blank page will be just an invitation for it to not be blank or a single page for long at all.
I completely agree. Alright, so rule number 2, structure. And the subheading reads, structure means knowing where you're going, making sure you don't meander about. Some great films have been made by meandering people, like Terrence Malick and Robert Altman. But it's not as well done today, and I don't recommend it. I'm a structure nut. I actually make charts. Where are the jokes, the thrills, the romance? Who knows what and when? You need these things to happen at the right times, and that's what you build your structures around, the way you want your audience to feel. Charts, graphed, coloured pens, anything that means you don't go in blind is useful. What are your thoughts on this, Gus? Because I have some nuanced opinions.
Yeah, no, I would say that, like, I don't feel one way completely or the other way. I would say that what he's describing with structure, he's conflating preparation a little bit with, like, story structure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, charts, colored pencils, stuff, that's all well and good, but you shouldn't make that the, like, oh, I'm so good at structure, look at how many, like, binders I have full of, like, color-coded notes on what may or may not happen at certain points in the story.
I've got binders full of plot points.
Yeah, and it's like, have you gotten there? Are you there? And no, sometimes you're just not, and that's not necessarily structure. That when something gets to that level of preparation, that doesn't scream organization to me. That screams procrastination and way too much going on.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and I think as well, I am a believer in the importance of structure, and with a lot of what I do, I tend to plan, though sometimes you can just wing it and it's completely fun. However, I think it's really important to remember that different stories are naturally going to have different requirements, and you should ask what yours is, because I'll put it this way, like, Spirited Away would not have benefited from being like a tightly scripted, like beat sheet movie, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, and neither would like a Terrence Malick film, for example. Like, at the end of the day, as much as Joss Whedon goes like, oh, it's not done well anymore. It's like, yeah, dude, because you only watched nerd shit. There's a lot of beautiful movies out there that are like meandering and strange, but use it to tell great stories. Like, that film Ghost, that came out I think in 2018, is an incredibly meandering plot, and like it's largely dialogue free, which Whedon would fucking hate, but I found it to be a tremendously affecting film.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't want to be needlessly mean to Joss Whedon. That's a lie. I never
Yeah,
do.
no, that's why we're
But
here. That's totally
but
why we're here.
but when it comes to like, this, when I look at his output, I just kind of think of a guy who like has kind of a one size fits all, and the organization and all this stuff is just like, well, the structure is really just me finding the best way to stack all the things I like into the right shape that remains standing.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing. Like,
It's a kind of one size fits all approach to the storytelling where it's like, well, it's got to come across as a thing that has all of the hallmarks of what I believe a fully fledged story from me should
I
be.
think what's really funny about that, Gus, and this is a pattern that applies to Joss Whedon and so many others. People who like brand and view themselves as like auteur creators burn bright but fast, because people are often praised for having like an incredibly distinct idiosyncratic style that they apply to everything they make, and it will lead to them initially having this huge popularity. I think Joss Whedon, Tim Burton, M. Night Shyamalan all apply to this, where like people are like, oh my god, these fucking geniuses, they make such weird movies, but they're all weird in the same way. But it always like comes around again, because people who make everything they make too similar will be at first be seen as geniuses, and then you'll get sick of it and the backlash begins. Like, how fucking annoying are like all the movies Tim Burton has made in the last 10 years that just feel like self-parody.
Yeah, it's just shtick at this
Yeah,
point.
it's like, oh, here is Tim or Joss playing their hits.
I was gonna say though, getting off the auteur thing and towards the over preparation
Go for it.
thing. So I was talking recently to one of my friends who is doing kind of a self-published light novel esque
Hmm.
project. She's been spending a lot of time in kind of amateur writing forums, and you end up seeing some interesting characters there in terms of people who over prepare. And she was telling me this story about a guy who had been spending like months developing the mathematics behind having winged humanoids in his story. And it's just like, buddy, if the math isn't adding up, why have you committed to winged humanoids? Like, this seems like a waste of your resources. Either put them in or spare yourself the math, because you're never getting
I
anywhere.
don't know, guys. I sometimes like to spend weeks considering how a world ender could
The
exist in the
Planet
same
Eater and like a
universe.
clan
In
of wizards can exist in the same universe. Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's all the mindset of people who just like sit there whittling away their day. This is the real like unhealthy masturbation, because no, you know what? It's fine for them if they want to whittle away their days shooting cum into the heavens. But if you want someone else to care about where your cum is going, to look into your eyes and tell you when they want your cum and where they want your cum, then you have to figure out ways of making yourself and your cum actually a part of something bigger than yourself.
The Dough Gentleman channel, the most semen-y channel on YouTube.
This is the fucking semeniest channel you've ever semened, and you know,
Like, it's. I agree with everything you said, I just hate the way you chose to say it.
this is what Whedon. This is the tone of a Whedon-centric Two Professional Writers episode.
This was inevitable. Rule 3. Have something to say. This should be... This starts with, this should really be number 1. Joss, it was your list. Anyway, this should really be number 1. Even if you're writing a Die Hard ripoff, have something to say about Die Hard ripoffs. The number of movies that are not about what they purport to be about is staggering. It's rare, especially in genres, to find a movie with an idea and not just, this will lead to many fine set pieces. The Island revolves into a car crash movie, and the moments of joy when they have clone moments and say, what does it feel like to be those guys? What?
Yeah, what? That,
You okay,
like,
Joss?
there's a lot in there, and a lot of it is wrong. Can we go back to, like, the last coherent thing he said?
Joss, can you lift both arms above your head? Can you taste copper?
Yeah. No, he said there are movies that aren't what they purport to be about and are just a series of set pieces. And I think that he is wrong. I think that is a sign of someone who is not empathizing with the work of other people. Like, because let's be real. How often have we encountered movies that are just about nothing? Like, and I'm not talking about movies that, like, you know, try to be about something but handle it in a clumsy way. I mean movies that just literally nothing, no meaning can be taken from them whatsoever.
Well, that's the thing. I'm not sure such a piece of art exists, because as many great video essays, from Dan Olson's coverage of Doug Walker's The Wall to H. Bomber Guy's video at Control-Alt-Delete, even the most inept pieces of art often end up leaving a lot of their creators on the table. So, yeah, I literally don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's possible, rather, to make something that says nothing, because even if you are actively pursuing saying nothing, that says something.
Exactly. Like, this to me, it strikes me as like Joss projected nothingness onto the mind of whatever creator of whatever piece of art he's referring to. And all of this just strikes me as like something that like a YouTuber would do. Like, I know my people. I know the people on this website. Like,
and we have suitably low faith in them.
well, there are so many people, and some of you down there, you probably watch someone like this. Heck, maybe even we're guilty of some takes that resemble this sometimes. We're not perfect. But this whole mindset of like, well, this piece of art was clearly made by a lazy, ineffectual person who didn't know at all what they were doing and just did something stupid because they're stupid.
Yeah.
Like, it's worthless. And I think that the worthlessness of that statement literally caved Joss Whedon's brain in, and then he just started flinging random words all around. Like, I feel like the rest of this was an attempt to reconcile his strange Die Hard statement with reality, and it never quite stuck the landing.
Yeah. Also, it's so incredibly Joss Whedon to think that a Die Hard ripoff, whatever, because again, it's a very fucking common plot structure. I think there's even like a wiki of movies that just have like the Die Hard plot.
The Die Hard scenario wiki,
Exactly. It makes me think of this general attitude of art that can only be commenting about art. Unlike what we said earlier of like, you know, I feel like art should probably comment about life too. And just because something might use the plot structure of Die Hard doesn't preclude it having something to say.
Yeah, and like, I also just don't know where Joss Whedon specifically gets off with this whole, like, oh, you know, certain things are just set pieces, when he made Ultron and Justice League, which are identical set piece movies.
Yeah, which, again, partly comes down to the fact that half of Marvel movies are done, like, by executives in previs, years in advance.
Then again, to be fair to Joss Whedon, I have seen Ultron, and I can't argue the fact that he didn't go with meaning with that one. He didn't. He certainly put ideas into that movie.
Yeah, go check out the MCU in Hell video on it for a little bit more specific discussion onto that. But I'm going to bring us onto Rule 4, which is everybody has a reason to live. Lovely sentiment, Joss. Alright, so the quote is, everybody has a perspective. Everybody in your scene, including the thug flanking your bad guy, has a reason. They have their own voice, their own identity, their own history. If anyone speaks in such a way that they're just setting up the next person's lines, then you don't get dialogue, you get sound bites. Not everybody has to be funny, not everybody has to be cute, not everybody has to be delightful, not everybody has to speak. This is not advice that Joss takes. And if you don't know who everybody is and why they're there, why they're feeling what they're feeling, and why they're going to do what they're doing, then you're in trouble. Yeah, that is, like, again, I don't think that's bad advice, but it's not advice Joss Whedon follows.
No, definitely, like, not everybody needs to be funny. Okay. Why does nobody shut the fuck up sometimes?
Well, that's the thing. I think the only person, like, more guilty of this than Joss Whedon is probably Aaron Sorkin, with just every character just being an unstoppable fucking, like, quip machine gun.
You know what would be really funny? Just crop the first and last sentence of this tip to Rule 4. Everyone has a reason to live. You're in trouble.
That's what happens if you're, like, locked in a house with Joss Whedon. You're in trouble.
Yeah, that's the top text and bottom text. Oh my god.
That's gonna be the plot.
Everyone has a reason to live. You're in trouble.
The thumbnail for this has got to be a picture of Joss with just "You're in trouble" in impact font next to him against the red background. That's the fucking thumbnail.
All right, everybody. Now you know why it was that.
There you go. Comment if you're this far in as well and you got that. Comment, I get the thumbnail. You don't. Just to flex on all the people who haven't got this far in.
Yeah, exactly. Do that.
Anyway, on to point 5, the mercifully short, cut what you love. This would be a very ironic one to be multiple paragraphs, so I'm glad he kept it short. Alright, so the paragraph is, here's one trick that I learned early on. If something isn't working, if you have a story you've built and it's blocked and you can't figure it out, take your favourite scene or your very best idea or set piece and cut it. It's brutal, but sometimes inevitable. The thing may find its way back in, but cutting it is usually an enormously freeing exercise. Like, the thing is, I'm a big proponent of Kill Your Darlings, but I think he used that in such a weird, specific, and, like, maybe it'll work for you, but, like, that's not where I expected him to take that.
I was a little weirded out by the fact that he was like, yeah, of all the things in this that you've written, pick your favorite thing and get rid of it.
Do you know what's really funny about that? That is in complete opposition to that earlier thing he said, where it's like, do your favorite thing first, and it'll make everything else easier.
And then get rid of... Does Joss Whedon just make a bunch of great scenes that are his favorite, cut them all, movies, and then release the... Oh my god. No, I was gonna say, don't like cut your favorite thing out of the script and leave all the things you like less. Cut everything else and make things more like your favorite scene.
Yeah, the thing about Cut What You Love is, like, it's a Whedonization of Kill Your Darlings, and the actual point of that quote is, if there is a scene you love, but it's not working, have the strength to cut it. Not, if you're having trouble with other things, cut the scene you love. Like, that's such a weird, like, arse-backwards way of looking at this. But now I really want a heist movie, and maybe we can crowdfund this if enough people join the Patreon. This would be a stretch goal, about you and me breaking into Joss Whedon's mansion and finding the, like, story vault where all of his actually good scenes are that he loves.
The Joss Vault.
The Joss Vault.
Yeah.
I jossed in my pants. But yeah, that was fucking weird. On to the next one. Rule 6. Listen. When I've been hired as a script doctor, it's usually because someone else can't get it through to the next level. It's true that writers are replaced when executives don't know what else to do, and that's terrible. But the fact of the matter is that for most of the screenplays I've worked on, I've been needed, whether or not I've been allowed to do anything good. Often someone just got locked. They've ossified. They're stuck in their heads. They're so stuck in their heads that they can't see to the people around them. It's very important to know when to stick to your guns, but it's also very important to listen to absolutely everybody. The stupidest person in the room might have the best idea. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's completely
Yeah,
true.
like
You
I
know?
think that is a point that he also expressed with enough nuance that I don't even feel like I need to add caveats to it. Like, yeah, know when to stick to your guns, but also listen to people.
Definitely, definitely. And I think we're practicing what we preach by agreeing with that rule, agreeing with Joss, and listening to him and offering no
The
caveats.
fairest podcasters in America, outside of America, in America. All right, on to Rule 7, which is track the. Sorry, I just looked down and saw that Rule 9 is don't listen. The fuck are you doing, Joss?
No, this is more Chuck Wendig stuff. It's like, do the unexpected, do the very expected, do the less expected than the expected, but above all, don't do anything, but do it
Do you know
all!
what this is like, Gus? There was this scandal of this Twitter account that everyone was like, oh shit, looked at all their tweets. They have, like, flawlessly predicted the future for a long fucking time. Like, they would just have statements like, this team will win this sporting event, like, this candidate will win, like, this political race, like, all stuff like that, and it was
Hmm.
flawless. But what people later realized had happened is someone had made an account and privated it and put two statements of both possible answers for a number of binary events. And then when the outcome came out, deleted the wrong tweet in each instance. So it looked like they got it right every single time. And this is a similar thing where it's like, well, if I give like constantly contradictory pieces of advice, no matter what happens, I'm kind of right because I'll just point to the ones that helped.
Yeah, it's the great sage Nostradamus who sneezes all over the future, and some of it's got to land in the correct
That's a
area.
little from the nose. All right.
That's a little on the nose.
God, that's a little from the nose is the stupidest joke I've made all video. Love it. All right. 7. Track the audience mood. You have one goal to connect with your audience. Therefore, you must track what your audience is feeling at all times. One of the biggest problems I face when watching other people's movies is I'll say, this part confuses me, or whatever, and they'll say, what I'm intending to say is this, and they'll go on about their intentions. None of this has anything to do with my experience as an audience member. Think in terms of what audiences think. They might go to the theatre and they either notice that their butts are numb or they don't. If you're gonna, my butt is numb right now. If you're gonna do your job right, they don't. The things we put ourselves through for you, audience members. Um, People think of a studio test screenings as terrible, and that's because a lot of studios are pretty stupid about it. They panic and reshoot, or they go, gee, Brazil can't have an unhappy ending, and that's the horror story. But it can make a lot of sense. That kind of feels the same as listen to people.
Yeah, but it also has this like weird thing of like Joss is apparently like, hanging out with somebody else who's like, I don't get this. This part's confusing. And then the person's like, oh, well, let me explain it to you. And Joss is like, yeah, I'm not hearing it.
What a jerk.
I don't fully understand what the situation is actually. Like and to an extent, someone who's like, writing a movie, you can try to foresee what the audience will be, but you can't it's not a live performance. You don't know what anyone's going to feel at certain points in Ultron, Joss.
Yeah, that they might get really uncomfortable when Black Widow says she's a monster too because she's infertile. There might be a really weird moment to write into that. Ditto for the, like, lullaby shit.
Or they might get super turned on by the boob trampoline thing, so much so that you have to put it in every movie and threaten two people's careers over it. You giant baby.
Yeah, you giant pervy baby. But yeah, I just don't think that's that useful piece of advice because, yeah, of course you should be thinking, like, well, here is what I want people to be feeling when, like, this moment goes out there. But, like, that should hopefully, if you're a good writer, be consistent with what you're feeling when you write it.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're not going to, even with a, like, even trying to appeal to like kind of like the lowest common denominator, like a big mass audience that is demographically supposed to respond in a certain way, you can't predict how everybody is going to feel, but some people will get it. Some people will feel the way you want them to feel, and other people might be entertained but feel something different.
Yeah.
You can't control everything, but you just got to make something dynamic enough that has enough going on that people are going to react and emotionally get a lot of different things out of it.
And that's the thing. He is, like, again, constantly kind of contradicting himself, because that feels like it's in complete defiance of what he was saying earlier with the kind of death of the author, like, you can't control the interpretation type stuff. Like according to him, like, author intentions shouldn't matter at all, really, beyond what the author believes.
Well, no, but he said art grows up and it talks back to you. You know, it's like a little monster that, like, you know, is a mechanized version of yourself that wants to replace you. But then a third mechanized like guy played by Paul Bettany replaces the second guy, thus leaving you at status quo again.
I want to see Vision versus Mecha Josh rather. The kind of think of it, that's just Ultron. Like Vision versus Mecha Joss is Ultron. Yeah.
Thank you for the entire joke I just said, Henry.
I'm sorry, it's been years since I watched it.
Well, that's good for you, and I hope you never see it again, because it's not worth rewatching.
And also, I have weird trauma attached to Age of Ultron, because it was after seeing that movie in the cinema that I had my embarrassing toilet incident. And no, people at home, I will not elaborate. Rule 8. We have write like a movie.
It's so stupid. I was about to break into like Frankie Valli's Walk Like a Man and just do write like a movie.
Talk like a movie.
Like a movie. Gonna be a movie.
Frankie Valli's great.
This is what you're here for. This is the channel you've subscribed
no
to.
refunds.
You don't even pay for this
You
content.
pay with your time, and it's ours now.
Numb butt gang. Hashtag numb butt gang.
Hashtag numbutt gang. Sound off
Numb
about
butt
it
gang.
in the comments. Let us know if you're the cool kids in the numbutt gang. Oh my god. Anyway, write the movie.
You got the numb butts.
Hey, numbutts.
Numb butts.
Write the movie as much as you can. If something is lush and extensive, you can describe it glowingly. If something isn't that important, just get past it tersely. Let the read feel like the movie. It does a lot of work for you, for the director, and for the executives who go, what will this be like when we put it on its feet? And this feels like a slightly more verbose way to say what is pretty, like, basic screenwriting advice. Like, obviously, as a screenwriter writing on spec, if you are not also directing your thing, you can't put, for example, like, camera movements in something. However, if you envision a close-up, what you can do to kind of like Jedi mind trick the director a little bit is devote a little bit more description and detail to the thing you imagine the close-up on. And that will subconsciously signal to the director, like, okay, this is important. We should probably have some focus on this. Like, and that's something that you just kind of get better at over time.
Exactly. And the other thing, too, is that, like, if something isn't that important, don't even put it in the action lines. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Only have the important things in the action lines.
Yeah, exactly. Next, penultimate rule, almost free. We have 9. Don't listen, which we geniusly foreshadowed earlier. All right, you ready? Having given the advice about listening, I have to give the opposite advice, because ultimately the best work comes when somebody's fucked the system, done the unexpected, and let their own personal voice into the machine that is movie making. Choose your battles. You wouldn't get Paul Thomas Anderson or Wes Anderson or any of these. Why all the Andersons? Was he just going through like a chronological like alphabet? Well, I think, is he going through like did he just Google as he was writing this like famous directors and just at the top of the like alphabetical list? But choose your battles. You wouldn't get Paul Thomas Anderson or Wes Anderson or any of these guys if all movie making was completely cookie cutter, but the process drives you in that direction. It's a homogenizing process, and you have to fight that a bit. That was the point we were That was the point while we were making Firefly. When I asked the network to pick it up, they'd started talking about a different show. Like, again, this was totally unnecessary in my opinion because there was enough nuance to hint towards that in his rule about listening.
Yeah, not only that, but like don't listen is a terrible like heading for
Yeah.
this. It doesn't make any sense because people who make like subversive art, I said the S word, sue me.
Subversive.
But people who do things that are like unexpected or like change the medium or do something. It's not because they don't listen. It's because they take in the information and are doing things contrary to it to make a different point. Like if they weren't listening, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know that the thing they were doing was different than what is usually done.
Exactly. As we always say, you have to know the rules to break the rules.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're just doing a thing that coincidentally is different.
Yeah, exactly.
With no value judgment, really. Like, lots of different stories come in lots of different shapes and sizes, but, like, you can't really do satire or subversion unless there's a thing you're building off of.
Yeah, and you need to know that thing well, or your observations on it will ring very hollow.
Exactly.
Alright, final rule from White Thanos, Joss Whedon, 10.
Whedon.
Don't sell out.
Whedon.
The first the first penny I ever earned, I saved. Then I made sure that I never had to take a job just because I needed to. I still needed jobs, of course, but I was able to take the ones that I loved. When I say that includes Waterworld, people scratch their heads, but it's a wonderful idea for a movie. Anything can be good. Even Last Action Hero could have been good. There's an idea somewhere in almost any movie. If you can find something that you love, then you can do it. If you can't do it, it doesn't matter how skillful you are. That's called whoring. Very classy, Joss. What do you think, Gus?
I mean, I think that he's speaking from a point of like, look, just don't take any writing jobs that you don't want to do. Like that's not something that like practically a lot of the people out there, you yourself, Henry, like you can vouch for the fact that writing is a lot of like, grinding and like maybe sometimes you have to work for things you don't quite like before you get that job that works for you.
100%. Like, go check out our, like, video on the heads of Sierra Blanca for a job in the writing world that I despised doing. Is a fucking amazing, weird, incredible story that you should 100% listen to if you haven't yet. But ultimately, it was something I need to do to make the money to buy the mic that we record half of Less is More on.
Exactly. Like, I think that, Joss, I don't quite agree with, like, the first half of this, and framing it around don't sell out is very strange, especially when he has some weird, like, old canard about, like, fiscal responsibility at the beginning there, like, I saved that penny. Like, that's all a non sequitur. This has nothing to do with writing.
Yeah,
like,
that's
fuck
the
off.
thing. I think that's a very rambly, insubstantial statement from him. But I think on top of all that, it must be said that it's quite condescending and comes from a place of privilege. Because yeah, like he came from a writing family. He got hired for a TV gig like pretty soon out of college. Like Joss Whedon's been a lucky guy in a lot of ways, and the fact is, anyone who writes for a living, luck is a part of it, and to deny that is ego, and it won't do you any good to pretend that you got here just because you were just that fucking good, because everyone needs a hand at some point, whether that's from someone they know, a family member, or just the invisible hand of fate. And like to pretend like, no, don't ever take a job you don't enjoy while like building up your writing on the side, like, is just patently bad and unworkable advice.
Exactly. Do what you have to do to both write and eat. Like that is your number one priority. The whole like selling out thing is it's really kind of this immaterial bar that is set by society and by other people. You yourself determine what you're doing, for your own good.
Exactly.
I will say this, hidden in there for some bizarre reason was a anecdote about like ideas for movies and how potentially any idea could work, and he brings up Last Action Hero, and I just thought that was kind of funny because the side project that I'm working on now is a feature superhero film where essentially it's the premise of The Last Action Hero, but the superhero from the movie is also the villainous force. My take on the evil Superman, while also being a little bit of a
Ratfink.
You're the Ratfink meme lord, yeah. That's double infinity. I've had a lot of fun writing that.
It's really fucking funny, having read it.
God, Last Action Hero was just such a big inspiration for that. But yeah. So we're through Joss Whedon's rules,
that's it. We've completed Whedon. And it's been an interesting mixed bag. I think a lot to talk about, some good, some bad, but frankly, I think a lot to take home with you as an audience, because at the end of the day, here are two really important facts that everyone should learn. Number one, you can learn something from everybody, even if, they are, even if it's what not to do, basically, through example. And fact number two, and something really important to remember, is taste and quality of work have no correlation with morality. And of course, while Gus and I dislike Joss Whedon's style of writing, to put it generously, there are a lot of people who love it. And the fact is, writing good doesn't make you a good person. Like, you can be a bad person and still write good. And that's a nuance we need to keep in our heads because, it's important to not make ourselves believe that someone has to be a good person just because they made stuff we like, or that we have to hate a thing just because it was made by a bad person, though, of course, don't financially support a living person you know to be bad.
Yeah, exactly. And all that being said, too, even if someone is a bad person and their writing is bad, that also doesn't mean that you don't ever have to know or interface with their work. Because sometimes their work might be oddly influential and might have a value, at least in the sense of, well, this is something I have to work around. This is an expectation others might have of me. This is something, for whatever reason, might come up in my career or might like add texture to something I'm doing. I think it's worth noting. Advice can come in the strangest of places, and it can even be the void left by the absence of a point sometimes.
And I think, honestly, that's what this whole show is about. So on that note, thank you for watching, everybody. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Go check out Less is More. Go check out the Patreon. And if there's anything you'd really like to see us cover in a future Two Professional Writers video, leave a suggestion down in the comments, because we do read them.
Just Whedon, just
Whedon,
Whedon, just
just
Whedon,
Whedon,
just
just
Whedon,
Whedon,
just Whedon,
just
just
Whedon,
Whedon, just Whedon.